Hello, everyone. Nick Ortiz coming at you live to talk about long-term disability claims. So what we're focused on in this group is long-term disability insurance claims. Now, what is long-term disability? We typically focus on group plan benefits. That is, when you work for an employer, some employers have fringe benefits like short-term disability, long-term disability, health insurance, life insurance, vision and dental. So our focus is on disability insurance through group plans, and most of those are governed by a federal law called ERISA, ERISA. So we're talking about these types of claims in particular. There are also in the long-term disability world individual plans, and we do those in states where I'm licensed, which is California, Texas, and Florida. Otherwise, individual might need to be in your individual state, so we do make referrals in those types of cases. But we do handle long-term disability cases nationwide. And another type of disability that's common, but that's not the topic of this video and this group, is Social Security disability. There's a whole separate group for that. So we're talking about long-term disability cases. So the topic of the day today is information confirmation. So I just had a conversation with a prospective client this morning, whereby we talked about how the claimant said that the insurance company in their claim oftentimes claimed that they did not receive information that was actually sent. And this includes information from the claimant. This includes information sent by the doctors. And we hear this all the time, and we experience it ourselves all the time. In fact, we experience it so often that we will only and predominantly communicate with the insurance company by letter, in written communication, oftentimes through faxing. Sometimes we're able to communicate by email, but we do want to communicate, and our preferred method of communication with insurance companies is in writing. Again, mostly through letters that are then faxed. We are still one of the firms that still uses old school faxes. And here's the reason. And it goes to what I mean by information confirmation. We use faxing predominantly because it creates a confirmation page, right? When we fax something, we get that confirmation page that says if it was a 10-page letter or a 2-page letter with 8 pages of attachments, that we sent 8 pages on this date, on this time, and we have a confirmation and a record of that communication. So that when the insurance company comes back down the road and says, hey, we never got any communication on XYZ date, we're able to say, actually, you did. Here's confirmation of it. And all too often, we find that the adjudicator or whoever answers the phone will dig into the file, and almost inevitably, they'll find that communication. And we usually hear something like, oh, it wasn't filed in the right spot in our file, in our system. Or I never, even though it was received, it was in the unprocessed section of the file. We oftentimes hear this kind of thing when we call them out and point out to them that we have written confirmation of our communication. But here's also why it's super important, because what we hear also a lot of times is that the insurance company will tell a claimant, hey, we can't process your claim, or we're unable to make a decision on your claim because we're still waiting on information from, let's say, a Dr. Jones, your Dr. Jones. Well, then the claimant gets really upset, and they call Dr. Jones's office and they say, hey, Dr. Jones, you're holding up my case. Like, the insurance company's waiting on my records. They said they've asked for it 3 times from you, and I can't believe your office hasn't sent it over yet. This is like, I don't, I have no money, and I'm really upset. And they kind of take it out on the doctor's office. And more often than not, we hear the response from the doctor's office is, whoa, hold on, we sent that information, and they go through their files and they say, look here, I mean, 2 weeks ago, we sent all your medical records. Let's say it was 50 pages, 50 pages of medical records. Here's the fax cover letter. Here's the fax confirmation sheet. So this isn't on us. Like, we submitted all that information several weeks ago. So now the claimant, perhaps with a little egg on their face, goes back to the insurance company and says, it was submitted. It was submitted like 2 weeks ago. And then the insurance company digs in their file, and lo and behold, they find the records. And they again say something like, oh, it wasn't put in the right part of the file, or again, misfiled in a different section of the file. And so I'm sorry, I never saw it. Now I got it, I'll process it. But what's the damage that was done? The damage is between the patient and their doctor. Because remember, the patient was all fired up, getting upset with the doctor's office, accusing them of not doing what they're supposed to do. Now the doctor's office is kind of like, look, we don't appreciate that. We don't appreciate you getting upset with us. Now, was it a natural reaction? Yes. But then the doctor's office might get upset and not want to deal. They could have several reactions of their own. They could decide, hey, look, we don't want to be involved in anything to do with your disability claim anymore. You know what? You can request your records and you can submit them yourself, but we're not going to submit them directly. We're not going to fill out any more paperwork. We don't want to be involved in that case anymore. So it can really damage the relationship between the patient and the doctor to the point where the doctor doesn't want to help out anymore. So that's a major danger in terms of all of this. But again, that's why it's important to have confirmation of the communication. Now, how are there some other verifications? Well, first let's start with voice. Again, not a preferred method of communication because it's not really subject to verification unless you confirm the conversation in writing. So let's say that you do call or the insurance company calls you and there are certain representations that are made, then my recommendation is to memorialize that conversation in an email or other communication to the insurance company saying, hey, this confirms I just spoke with Judy Smith. This was the sum and substance of our conversation. These were the representations that were made. These were the promises that were made. I just want to memorialize the conversation in writing so you can put it in your file. And then I would fire that off and submit that. That's one verification of voice. Next method of communication, email. I would want to have email confirmation. So obviously, if you send it, then there should be, if you keep a copy either to your, you can copy yourself. That can create a memorialization of the communication. There are also, as you may know, I don't know if you've ever received an email where it asks you to confirm or click that the sender is seeking a confirmation of that you've opened it. So you may be able to send your own confirmation email that asks the recipient to click on something to confirm that they've received it, and that can create a memorialization that you both sent it and they received it and they're confirming receipt. So that's one good method of confirming communication by email. The next is fax. We talked a little bit about that before. Usually there's a fax confirmation page. I would keep that on file along with any communications with the insurance company. And then finally, there's good old snail mail. There's like if you send a letter, the preferred method of sending something to the insurance company is something trackable. And it costs more money, but you want to send something either certified mail through the US Postal Service, or if you're using something like FedEx or UPS, you want something that has a trackable, verifiable number. So this is what I mean by information confirmation. You always want a written kind of history of your communication with the insurance company and something that can be objectively verifiable in case there's ever an issue down the road as to them claiming they didn't receive something. So that's the topic of the day today, folks. Hope that's helpful to some of you out there. Hope everyone has a great week, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.